Hi, Tim. Good morning.
Good morning.
Oh, I didn't realize we're early.
Yeah, well, it's an unusual hour for me, so it's not like I've got anything else going on.
Hey, hi, Tim.
Hello.
You want me to take meeting minutes notes?
This is my first time attending this particular meeting, so I have no idea. You should
Okay,
do whatever you want to do.
Sridhar, yeah, I think as vice chair, I'm supposed to run the meeting today in Joe's absence.
Yeah, Tim. Yeah, I think I was talking. I think So if you want any help in if you want me to take the notes, I can do that.
Okay, yeah, that seems like a good idea.
So can I share my screen so that you can all see the minutes? Yeah. Okay. 2 minutes. Let me minimize all these things and bring up the. Yeah. So I have created this one. So maybe let me move it to a bigger screen. Share a different screen. Just give me 1 second.
There we go.
You can all see the TSC, the wiki, right?
Yes.
Okay. So let me edit the page. And I'll have to pull this down, I think.
You go all of yeah, there you
go. Yeah. Okay. Is this okay?
Yeah.
Good.
So
Good.
I think the first order of business is we usually do roll on the TSC members.
All right.
So I think Dan Daly's here for Rob. Of course, I'm here.
Dan, right?
Dan Daly, yeah.
Okay.
And
Mike was supposed in place of Sahi. Mike do we have him in the call?
is he here?
I don't
don't see him.
see him.
No, I don't see him either.
Maybe he will join, I think.
Right, so Venkat is here.
That is here. Joe is missing.
Missing.
Richard.
Richard is here.
Yeah. Prasoon,
I don't see Prasoon.
Stephen. We don't have Steve. We have 1, 2, 3. Yeah,
4 or 5. So is
we
that
have
half?
5 out of 9. I think Michael is here now. Michael Dubman. Yeah, I think he's the. Okay, so we do have a quorum there.
Okay.
Okay, I have retained the previous minutes. So if you want, we can modify what are the agenda for today.
So the 3 items on there, I guess, looks like the SmartNIC Summit.
Yeah, these
lab
are
update.
last week.
Those are last week's.
Oh, these are all
These
last
are
week. Okay.
Yeah.
But
So
we
is there
haven't got.
any-
I see. Okay.
Do we approve the last? These are the minutes from the last week. Maybe we'll assume that it's approved. Do we want to continue any of this topic today, or do we have any new agenda items? Anybody?
Yeah, a couple. I know that Tim Worsley from F5 was wanting to present here, correct?
Okay.
Right. Yeah. Along the lines of defining the first useful OPI release and F5's proposal for that. For what
Okay.
application for that would be.
Okay, let me copy paste. Okay. Any other topic?
Do you have any outreach topics, Paul?
Tim, can I add a topic?
Go ahead, Boris.
So first of all, I have a quick announcement to make once we start, like the same that we did last week about new repositories. And I want also to propose a topic about the demos. We're doing a lot of demos, and we want to TSC to make an official work stream, maybe. So we'll talk about it once we get to this topic.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, you.
Should we do those earlier? Let's move those up on the list.
Yeah, I was thinking I was
They'll be quick and we'll get through them.
Okay. And anything else? Anything from the remaining? I think on the first useful release we have. I think any update on the lab we want to provide, or a SmartNIC Summit? Anything we want to add here?
I think there was an update to the board on the lab, but I don't attend that meeting, so I don't have that information.
I will provide the update here in the board meeting update.
Oh, okay, excellent.
So I just want to know if there are anything else that we want to cover before we agree on this minutes thing.
So we're going to do 1, 2, 3, and then the rest drop off the bottom. 4, 5.
Yeah. I'll remove it. I'll clean it up later then.
Okay.
I wouldn't mind just a real quick discussion on what the TSC thinks about maintaining the website or having the Linux Foundation maintain it.
Okay.
I know Boris has provided his input, but I haven't seen any other input when I put out that message.
Okay. Okay, so can I start with the first topic?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, so there's relevant things. First is so Joe, I'll quickly show those slides Joe shared. Update on what's happening. What TSC has been doing over last a month. since board met last time. There were, I'll just quickly show those slides. Yeah, so mainly around the progress that has been happening on with the SDOs that have discussions are happening with Redfish and SNIA. Mainly the focus more on the SNIA thing. And he left for the lab discussions when the lab discussion topic came up. And these were the updates that were shared by Joe. There were not many questions around this, not many comments and questions around this. Of course, you are all very familiar with this progress that has been happening. And this is the big picture that Joe shows to the board, and they all like it. I mean, because it quickly summarizes what's happening in each of these blocks based around the repos, right? If you see, if they're all based on the repos that has been created and additional progress that is happening in this. So this big picture summary, there were not much questions on it. Okay, and the another relevant for the TSC is about the lab discussions happened. There was an extensive discussion around lab. Both Venkat and Mircha gave a presentation. Okay. So all the details were provided to the board, and the budget was requested, and the budget was approved. Requested budget was approved by the board. It was unanimous. It's okay. Everybody voted as +1. So requested budget was also approved by the board. Now we can start spending. So I think once the lab committee, I mean, I don't want to use the word. Yeah, maybe we have a group of people working on the lab proposals, right? So now they can take the next steps, start finalizing the proposals, and we can start building the lab then. Okay, the budget has been approved. The board is okay with it. There were some questions on some details, and all the questions were answered by both Venkat and Mircha. And whatever the points that were shown during our previous TSC calls, we discussed those presentation slides, and some of the slides may be slightly updated, but the contents were more or less the same. Okay, so these are the main points from the board meeting with respect to TSC. Do you have any questions? And also, I'm sorry, one more point. We were welcoming like a new general member to OPI. Okay, so we have a new general member, HPE, who has joined as a general member to OPI. Any questions on this board meeting?
Yeah, one comment, Sridhar. See, there was one thing that might be relevant here to discuss, right? There were questions about donations of equipment, because there are two phases to it, or at least that's how I interpreted it. Because we are building a lab right now, and then if anyone wants to donate equipment that's already in the existing WOM, we have a timeline, right? We quickly, if we can reach out to each member, or I think Paul has already started some discussion.
Yeah, I have started that, but I have yet to receive a part number from any of the vendors. So I've been put in touch with, in some cases, some of the right people, but at this point, I've not received any part numbers for, such and such DPU or such and such server is required for our DPU. I haven't received any of that yet.
So there are two things, right? One is donations, so other is, what server to use.
Yes.
Because if the part number they give is the same thing that somebody wants to donate, then
that's great. I mean, if that's the process, then I don't need the part number because we'll get the part.
And again, asking it right now so that before we build the lab is one. Beyond that, I think we need to have a general open invitation to everyone to donate. If there is
Correct.
something relevant. And I think that we need to discuss, and then because we don't want to end up with a lot of spare equipment from their labs getting dumped, right? I've seen that happen in some places, right? Donations are like old used, unusable equipment. So creating some rules about what somebody can donate and what we could use need not be extensive, but at least at a high level we can say, you want to give something, we need to accept also. So I think there's a short term and there's a long term view of this.
So
Yes.
can we, similar to our other policy documents, can we in GitHub, can we add a small policy document around this donation?
Yes,
Or loading of the hardware?
I think it should go into one of the existing documents. Yeah. Along with the spending guidelines, maybe we need to also say, non-spending guideline, which is donation guideline. Also, if we can add a couple of lines there and get it reviewed here, maybe in the next meeting.
So do we have a volunteer to write that document?
I can write few lines and discuss in some of the Slack channels, and once that looks okay, then we can go add it.
Then you'll create a pull request with it.
I'll get it done. Let me say it that way.
So thanks a lot.
Organized around actually doing the procurement. I mean, do we have a small team of people assigned for this?
Yeah, so yes, there is a OPA lab subcommittee, for lack of a better word. There are a bunch of us that we have. Maybe I can just give a quick update on what we updated to the board. So we asked for a budget request of 140K. 150K was allocated as part of the annual planning. So because this is below, it was a smooth approval from everyone. We presented estimates of what the bill of materials might cost. Again, bill of materials had part numbers that are representative, not the final servers or final switcher or router from a specific company we would buy. So it's all estimates. So the action items we took are, we will come back and present the actuals in 1 month. And then we also discussed about this donation, about phase 1 of the lab. If somebody wants to donate for phase 1, we need it right now, right? I mean, we need it soon. That's phase 1. Phase 2 is again, action item was to create guidelines for long-term, donation guidelines. That was action item 2. Maybe 2 and 3. And the third one is that there are 4 vendors we sent 2-3 documents to 4 vendors, and then we presented the timelines. The deadline for sending a quote from them is 17th, which is tomorrow. We received 1 quote, waiting for the other 3. And then once those quotes come, this group will meet next week to finalize. Plan is to finalize the vendor by next Friday, which is 24th, I think. And then beyond that is when we go into the procurement and all that discussion. And there is some chance that if there are a lot of questions, or if the courts have certain things that need to be clarified because our requirements are not clear or ambiguous, if we find that, there is some chance that we may extend the whole thing by another week. And then hopefully we don't have to do another revision of sending documents, getting another quote. But there is some chance that it may slip by a week.
Anybody have a feel for when that lab ready to use date might actually be? I see it's TBD on here, and
yeah,
we don't have a vendor picked. We can't actually nail it. But
yeah, so there was, especially on the supply chain issues and things going up, and it has become very random, unpredictable. That's why even the guys who run labs and have big labs and buy and install, even they are thrown off. Nobody is able to give an exact date. And then, like I said, there are, even we need to know the part numbers that we need to use, and we need to get it from each of the DPU vendors here. This is really important. We really need that. Otherwise, it affects us negatively. So we may have to give an action item to or either the TSC members or board members and give a deadline and say we need your part number by this date. The part number is which DPU to buy, which server do you recommend this DPU to be installed in. These are the 2 action items. And Paul already sent those messages. Paul, do we want to send maybe another reminder?
Yeah, I'm right now looking for in my sent box for the messages I sent to send a reminder to everyone.
And then give a deadline. Sometimes a date makes us move
Got it.
faster.
Yeah, well,
And does your
the best way to fight supply chain is to get POs on the books, right?
Yep.
Yeah. And then hopefully the vendors can prioritize expedite, because this is their good. This is good for the companies. Paul, question: do you have both the DPU as well as the server in your email as a request? That
Yes, I asked the my request was we need a part number for the DPU and the qualified servers that DPU will fit in.
Okay, got it. Yeah.
Is there a complexity around the operating system that goes on that server?
I'm sure there will be.
guess we
having
could sort
done
that
this
out
a few times.
Yeah, we can sort that out after we have the hardware. But
Yeah.
Okay. Any other points on this one?
I think we should wrap this one up.
Any questions? Okay. Okay.
I think it's Boris with his message on repo announcements and then demos.
Okay. I can share the screen, so that's fine.
No, go ahead.
Yeah, okay. So we created and published 2 new repositories. One repository is called PyDPU. So this is a Python package, both the library and the CLI. So people can use it to interact with all the DPUs. I think it's extremely important. Finally, we find our kind of good way to implement and make it available. So now we can use that for testing. We can give it to customers to build the applications on top. And we also obviously publish it to PyPy. This is official Python repository. And we also publish it to Docker Hub, which is official Docker repository, in addition to publishing to GitHub itself. So this was a big work that I completed. So you all can see the links and follow them. I think Joe already presented it to the board as well. We did the same thing for Go. We created a similar repository in Golang, which is called Go DPU. Originally, it started like specifically for CSI, but I felt the need to extend it and create very similar 2 repositories in 2 different languages to interact with DPUs. So now all the ecosystem that uses Go language, which is Kubernetes, big cloud providers, everybody's using Go nowadays. So they can import our library and interact with all the GPUs and IPUs. They're all using our protobuf gRPC APIs for most of the part, and we keep extending it as we go. Obviously, Go doesn't need to be published anywhere except for GitHub, and we also created a Docker for Go DPU and published it on Docker Hub as well. Any questions?
No questions. I just wanted to say that's great. Thank you, Boris.
Thanks, Tim.
Now
Hopefully this will allow us to grow the community more.
Yeah, Boris, again, comment, right? I think this is good. I have seen Mircha start using it. I think, when we make it simple to use, more people use it. So thank you for that.
Yeah, and for people who are working on the different things on DPUs, I welcome you to try it out, import it, whether you're using Go language or Python, and any feedback is very welcomed. Pull requests, issues, whatever you need. I think that together we can make this a really good library. I know Red Hat is using Go very extensively, so if people from Red Hat are using Go and want to give it a try, give us advice how to make this a better library, we are very much welcoming any contribution in this space.
And the demos, Boris, I think, is it?
Yeah, let's start demos. So Mircha unofficially helped us a lot by creating 2 demos so far. One is focusing on cloud networking APIs, and one is focusing on IPsec. It was great. We recorded them. We uploaded to a separate list on the YouTube as well. And I feel personally that we need to continue that momentum. I know Mircha is working on a couple more demos, but I think that we need kind of endorsement from TSC to make it an official that we have a work stream that doing demos, focusing on using all the work that different work groups provide, combining them together, recording it, uploading to YouTube. I just feel that we need some kind of official stamp and official work stream definition for this. And if Mircha wants to lead that, okay, no problem, obviously. But I feel that it was kind of underground. We did it unofficially so far, and I want to bring it to the TSC and make it official somehow. We need to create a plan maybe, and what demos upcoming, what we need to focus on. That will help us a lot to create those demos as we go.
The question, Boris, we already have the POC development platform, right? Would that be the same in one sense? Because that's where we are looking at OPA lab and have a development platform, and maybe the demos kind of belong there to start with, and maybe, if it become, are including testing, right? Sorry, I didn't see your hand up. I just jumped in.
Yeah, that's basically the same thing I was going to say is, I had sort of envisioned that the POC work stream and the repo would be, probably the first place where those things would live. That was just my thought. Certainly welcome to hear other opinions on that.
I'm not against it. I'm just saying that the demo wasn't officially any kind of work stream or any thing so far, and I think we need to officially kind of make it happen and endorse it, maybe create a plan for upcoming demos. I have no problem hosting it under POC work stream. That's completely fine. I'm just saying that probably TSC wasn't aware till now that this is a big thing that we're currently doing, and we wanted to make it visible.
So Boris, you say that the demos are being recorded, but are they ever actually presented live the first time? And what's the forum for that?
So far, the 2 of them that have been recorded were part of the API meeting, I think. API or they were one of the meetings, and then I took and sliced off the meeting content and made it just a demo, whatever was just the time slice of the demo itself.
Yeah, Paul is right. We presented it live in API meetings, and Paul sliced the relevant portion of the demo and uploaded it separately to a folder on YouTube.
It's in the demos playlist on YouTube.
Right. So we present in a work group, and then we announce maybe at the TSC that it's available. so that everybody knows about it. It seems like a workable path.
Yep. Well, and everybody's subscribed to the YouTube channel, right?
Well, they should be.
You can resend the link.
Yes.
Send a link right now and then we'll
I'll
check.
find the
What we-
link right now in just a minute.
But what we're missing, Tim, is a kind of direction. For example, which demos are going to be more interest, like kind of plan to build.
Marcia has his hand up.
Yeah, I agree with Boris that if we have some list and some suggestion will be good, because right now, big demo, I would say storage will be one of them. And since we have the lab, I'm trying to do whatever we did in the lab diagram in my lab, so like a private copy of the OPI lab, and show a demo of a test running there with a free traffic generator and so on, that it's software based. So those are two demos which I thought about and I'm working to do. But beyond that, for example, at this moment, I'm out of ideas. So if people are like, hey, we are very interested to showcase OPI working in this use case, that will be really useful to have a list and the plan. That doesn't mean I'm going to volunteer for all of them, but at
Yeah.
least to have.
I guess I'm a little confused, Boris, whether this is a top-down thing or a bottom-up, right? So bottom-up is we've done some work, we
Both.
do a demo to show the work in action. Top-down would be TSC says, hey, we need demos around A, B, and C, right? How
It's
do you
not
imagine
only
it working?
TSC, I would say. It's like, I don't know, let's say a vendor implemented the OPI API for, I don't know, a certain use case. They can propose that to be demoed that they have ready to show. Different vendors can have different parts of OPI ready to showcase. So they can suggest. It doesn't need to be necessarily TSC. Anybody can make suggestions, I would say.
Right. That feels more like an ad hoc process rather than some planned thing. Which I felt like Boris was looking for more of a planned thing. I guess I'm asking you, Boris, what are you really actually looking for here?
Again, I think demos are very important for both outreach, creating more community, and more explanations. So far, we were working like under the ground, ad hoc, whatever we have ready, we're presenting without any actual plan or even resources, right? So Marcio was donating his time to do that, and Paul was very helpful for us with the YouTube. So that was kind of under the cover. So if TSC feels that there are any important demos that we should be focusing on and demonstrating, the input is very much welcome. Obviously, from the this is the top down. Down top is, bottom up is, whoever is ready with the demo and wants to present it, obviously very much welcome to do so. So that will always be kind of happening. But I feel that we're lacking a little bit of visibility and we're lacking a little bit of structure in this space.
And do you have a proposal on how we could fill that gap at the TSC level?
Steven sent up maybe give us a suggestion.
Well, I was just going to suggest, probably one area that I think we will definitely want a demo and to prioritize it is going to be around Kubernetes. I'm not sure that we're ready for a demo yet. I think we need to make a plan around how we're actually going to, support and enable Kubernetes before we can have a demo. And I kind of feel like that's where we are in a lot of aspects of OPI. I think we could absolutely have some demos around secure zero-touch provisioning. We could have, the demos that Mircea already did were very good. Those are some things that we've done some established work around already. A lot of other areas, I don't know that we're ready for demos yet.
So Sridhar, could we put as an action item for next TSC meeting to discuss a list of proposed demos?
Yes, I will do that.
And people should bring the things that they think should be on that list. And they're not things that necessarily can be done today, but they're the list of where we want to get to, demos that we want to get to. In a sense, that gives us a set of goals to work towards as well.
Yeah. So from the other projects also, right? As demos are hugely valuable. So typically, both the TSC and the outreach, the marketing committee, they work together whenever there is an opportunity of demo, whenever some demo is created. I mean, everybody gets excited, and it's a huge thing because it adds a lot of value, creating the visibility of the project also, and showcasing the value too. So the outreach marketing committee plays a big role once the demo is done or created. We put it on the website, we market it and showcase in different places and everything.
I don't think anybody's arguing with the value prop here.
Yeah.
Okay, what's next on our agenda list, Sridhar?
The maintenance, the website maintenance, LF versus members.
Yeah. Yeah, so that, I mean, that's a question. I posted it in Slack earlier in the week. You know, when Kyle was the one who set up the Hugo website, Boris has been maintaining it since Kyle left, any content updates. And just wondering if we want to continue using the Hugo website. My concern with doing that is we're using just a standard theme, a standard profile in Hugo. I don't know that any of us have the design sense to create a compelling website. But if we handed that task to the Linux Foundation, the pro of that is we would gain the design sense that their creative services team brings to it. The con is that it's no longer tied to GitHub and pull requests and markdown files that are automatically rendered into web pages. We would have to go through a process, and I've been assured that it's generally a 24 to 48 hour process to ask for content to be updated on the website and for it to be updated. So that's the pro is that we get a better designed website, a more appealing website, and the con is that it's no longer we lose some flexibility and it's no longer in our direct control what happens with it. And I'd love to hear what people's thoughts and reactions are to that.
Stephen?
Yeah, so as long as it's not going to like blow our Linux Foundation budget, I'd say hand it over. And I mean, the website that we have now is functional largely, but it's definitely not pretty. I would love to hand it over and let them do the hard work on making it look good and keep it up to date.
So just to clarify that, Steve, it's already part of the budget. It's already paid, kind of a thing. It's left to us whether we make use or not. It's covered in that budget that we have.
Well, to me, that's a no-brainer then.
Oh, Boris seemed to have an opinion on that. Boris?
I don't think that's a good idea because in theory, this is great. Somebody's managing our website, makes it pretty. In reality, what we end up with doing, instead of just creating a quick pull request and updating what we need, we're going to have long cycles with Linux Foundation, opening tickets, trying to explain what we do. Nobody, from my understanding, is going to follow on different things we need to update. So we'll need to create those tickets. And we'll need to find and do all this work for them, and they just implement that stuff. So I don't see a huge benefit of doing so.
So do you think you maintaining the Hugo website is sustainable for us?
No, I'm definitely not going to maintain a Hugo website.
Yeah, so that's the problem, right?
But I think, again, this is not a viable option, but it would be ideal if Linux Foundation could manage the website in GitHub so everybody can contribute instead of managing it privately without any access. That's my concern, right? If it's open GitHub in any framework that we can have access to and create our own pull requests in addition to Linux Foundation managing that's an open source. If we are doing this completely offloading and we're not having any visibility, so I don't know.
Let me add a point to that, Boris. So what they do is they will also give access to us. For me, for example, for both me and the marketing representative who has recently joined the OPI project. So we both have access to that. So whatever this minor changes, anything, if it is not too much of design changes, either I or the marketing representative can do it quickly. Maybe just in 30 minutes, we can have those changes done. We don't have to open the tickets for all those minor changes that we do in the Markdown files. Unless there's a significant design change or anything to be new page to be added and all those things, then with this, we will open the ticket and get it done. Or else all the other minor things, we do it on our own quickly.
Because in theory, I agree with you, this is great. In reality, we couldn't make still till today, the contribution page that Linux Foundation edits, Sridhar, right? It's still not accurate, reflecting all the contributions from different companies.
The insights, you mean?
Yeah, the insights.
Oh,
so it's still not working.
No, it's mostly around the affiliation is the issue. Yeah, we'll talk about that maybe next time. Yeah.
So Paul, do you want to push this to a decision in the next week or two?
I would love to push it to a decision in the next week or two.
Sure.
I'm meeting with the design committee people in 21 minutes.
Yeah, so could we
talk
ask
about
that we
branding
discuss,
and those things?
Yeah, we
I'll
discuss this on Slack. You go talk to them, Paul.
Mhm.
Let's discuss it again in the next TSC meeting. And if we think we're done talking, let's have a vote next week.
Okay.
So jumping in, so a couple of comments, right? One is, can we have a hybrid? Can there be like a beautiful rendering, but inside that it has links to, something in GitHub so that it pulls from there. And as you click, you just go down, right? There could be something in hybrid. The second, I remember doing something like that a while back, but I'm not an expert anymore. These things are changing so much.
Yeah.
The second comment is, can we use interns, right? There are, this is something that of course, I was not in the board meeting at the time. I sent an email saying board should consider interns. Most of the Linux Foundation projects have interns. Sridhar and I spoke a while back about it. They could help us with a lot of these kind of small things. They learn as well as it's some useful for us, and we are helping them. In a way, we are helping the student community, right? Also, one idea Sridhar had was that on the interns, again, maybe digressing, is that if we can do a quick survey on the ideas from everyone on interns, maybe we'll gather that information and see if website could be one of the things the interns do.
Okay, I think we need to move on so we can do the last 20 minutes on the F5 proposal for a use case.
Perfect.
So I think Tim Worsley is here. Maybe he can share his screen and we'll hear about his proposal.
All righty then.
We see your entire desktop and the presentation is small, but now it's big.
Yes. Alrighty. So hi, I'm Tim Worsley. I'm from F5, and this is a proposal for what the first workload would be for the Open Programmable Infrastructure project, and we are proposing using Nginx open source. Interesting. So obviously, hardware acceleration requires workloads to accelerate. And then we also need to start thinking about, if we have infrastructure, how do we deploy and configure things on that infrastructure? And if somebody says that they've done, something, or that it's hardware compliant, it'd be nice if we had a way to verify that. F5 already has all of these capabilities. We developed them internally, but they're all, using our own closed source software, which, presumably OPI is really not interested in. And Nginx is, widely deployed and understood by the open source community at large. And also, we have other conversations with hardware vendors, and every time we're evaluating a card or looking at something new, it's usually revealed that they've already done some work with open source Nginx. And obviously, open source Nginx is ARM compliant, which is useful since most of these cards are going to be using ARM processors. So what we're proposing is effectively an acceptance test for hardware acceleration that's comprised of 3 pods. You have a traffic source pod that generates traffic. We have an application pod that's the target that processes the traffic. Then we have a traffic target pod that is essentially what the traffic is aimed at. And this is important because it allows us to handle both what we're going to call inbound, where the DPU effectively is processing traffic before it hits the host, and also outbound, where the host generates traffic, runs it through the DPU, and then that traffic gets forwarded to a target outside. And this architecture also lets you do hairpin, which is where the host generates the traffic, sends it to the DPU, which sends it back to the host. This has the advantage, by the way, if you're doing testing of high-speed networks, that you don't need to worry about expensive optics or switching. At F5, we have the ability to generate very large traffic streams. We have a lot of high-speed switching and networking, but those are limited resources, and we have a lot of people doing development, and so we actually do a lot of the hairpin stuff internally when we're just have a team working on something, right? Most of the members of the team are just going to be hairpinning because we have limited lab resources, and there are obviously much more complicated use cases that you can use with this, like source to DPU to host to DPU to target, but that's more complicated than the test cases that this is intended to address, as this is just the first workload. And just to let you know, like the inbound traffic stream is for things like firewall and TLS offload, whereas outbound is more like switching, load balancing, and ECMP. So it's when you're heading outbound, those are sort of use cases for that. So the proposal is a number of things. We want to define a deliverable set of 3 things: a source, a workload, and a target. We want to use containers because we don't want to have operating system compatibility matrices. Every time I pick up something off of a backlog and it says I'm having issues on Solaris, I become less happy. So we want to avoid becoming less happy. We want to use Kubernetes so that we don't have to worry about network configuration issues. Otherwise, we could potentially have people asking questions about, well, in my crazy network configuration, I've got X, Y, and Z working. If we define, that it works on this type of Kubernetes, then they have to go solve all those problems themselves. And then, we're proposing, obviously, having Nginx open source be the first workload for the reasons we've already mentioned. And if this is accepted by, the OPI group, we would be happy to assign our own resources to deliver this. However, the really important thing that we want is to agree on a first workload. We want to define its deliverables, and we want to assign resources to deliver it. This is more important to us than any specific detail of the workload. So we really want to see this group agree on this. We have a straw man here. We're going to very much push for that agreement, but this is all open to negotiation. The purpose of this proposal is really just to get the ball rolling in the direction of agreement, rather than to push any specific part of the agenda. And then from a scoping perspective, what we're talking about is just a software solution. You could run it on your laptop, you could run it in the cloud. We're intending to start conversations with this workload about hardware acceleration and application installation configuration, not to wait for those conversations to conclude before we have a workload that we can test with. And also, while we would like to agree upon a supported Kubernetes installation. We were not intending to start like, automating its deployment on in particular cards or any of that stuff as part of this specific proposal. So, questions like, do you agree? Is there another better first workload? I'd love to hear what and why. And then, what is it that we want to deliver? If not this, then what? If we were going to deliver something, if F5 was going to deliver something, what would OPI want it to be? Does that make sense?
And these three deliverables, Tim, the source, the target, the workload, those would all live up in an OPI repository where people could look at them, contribute to them, modify them over time.
Well, yeah, F5 would contribute them to OPI, who would presumably choose to host them that way. Yes.
Right, and then they'd be available for the POC teams or other teams to work with as something that's deployable and functional that we could start to place on top of actual DPU cards.
Yes, exactly.
But F5 itself is not doing the work to put the workload on a DPU card. It's just
right. Yes, that's
providing
called
the
out
thing.
In scope. Is this is going to be software only, right? It'll run on laptops. It could run in the cloud. It's not going to be tied to any specific hardware because we want to use this to start that process and start that conversation rather than waiting for those conversations to conclude. Okay,
I see Dan Daly's guy's hand up. Dan?
Yeah, I just want to say thank you. I think this is a really great idea. I think it's great if an application vendor or someone working with an open source application can bring that to OPI and say, this is what I want offloaded. And so tell me how OPI does that. I think so off the bat, I think this is great. And we would definitely welcome, if this was open source somewhere, then it would give us a great starting point to be able to start to move that onto the IPU. My question was around the OPI, the tie-ins to what we've already been working on inside of OPI. Do you have an idea of how this would tie into maybe the OPI APIs that we've defined thus far? And would this also go into the OPI use case subgroup to just describe in more detail kind of what you're trying to do with this usage and how it should be sort of packaged up? So those are my two questions: is how it would tie in with those two work groups.
Let me answer the second one. It came from the use case group. We had this presentation, the use case group, and we decided we want to present it to the wider forum because we think this is a good idea.
Okay.
And then the question, as far as the API, the idea was that once we had this in hand, F5 would then go to the API group and ask them, so how are these APIs intended to work in this use case? And then, in a perfect world, we would then modify what had been submitted to, follow whatever pattern was, recommended to us.
I think that makes sense. Thank you.
It's like a test case for onboarding an application using the OPI APIs.
Right.
Gene, you have a question?
Yeah, I was going to say, I think this is a great idea. It's got my support.
So Tim, I have a question about the timing of this. I assume this doesn't all exist yet. How long until OPI could start to see some output here?
The answer is we've already developed all of this internally, but we've done it with, we've done it with entirely closed source solutions, which is just uninteresting. So we will have to replace 100% of what we've done, but it's following a pattern that we've already developed internally. From a timeline perspective, I was hoping it would be delivered in the next month. We have some resources lined up to work on it, but there are questions around pods on top of what Kubernetes, do we agree on containers, stuff like that have kept us from starting work on it yet, since we do actually want to, talk to the community and understand what the goals and direction are. But, we have resources ready to go on this, and our plan was to try to deliver things, relatively quickly once, agreement is reached.
Lad?
This is really hits home for me, because this is exactly what I believe we should be doing as our first priority, getting something which is well recognized in the industry as a workload, bringing it out on our DPUs and IPUs, showing that it works, and creating traction by showing that this is possible. At the same time, as people said here, and this is absolutely correct, learning how to onboard an existing application by doing, which is priceless. I mean, I love the work we've done so far, but this is something that we can actually deploy. And that's the difference in my mind. That's what I've been driving from day one. So I really believe this is the path to move forward. And I thank F5 for bringing this. Obviously, we'll welcome more later, but in my mind, this is exactly what we should be focusing on.
Venkat?
Yeah, so this was the first thing I think we spoke in the use case working group. I don't know, for some reason it went into the back burner. We kind of went in loops and finally arrived. I'm glad we arrived at this. I agree with Elad and what else was said. But I think, right, there's quite a bit of discussion on what kind of workloads and the whole networking model. But it looks like, maybe Tim, you can correct me, right? This is not really precluding anything else, right? This is just taking one of the most popular workloads out there and showing it, and then somebody else can use the APIs that might come out of this. As you do this, we may add few things to the API, OPI APIs, and they can be reused elsewhere. So because it's not precluding anything, and this is Nginx quite.
This is intended to be the first of many such sets.
Exactly. Yeah. And as long as we keep that open goal that, hey, this is one, this, Nginx is everywhere. And I mean, it's all like Kubernetes, Nginx is all fairly standard stuff that people like. So we just say that we won't preclude anything and then go with this. Yeah.
And just to let you know, sorry, but the intent with this is that when we identify a particular type of hardware acceleration feature, like let's talk about like just picking TLS termination, for example, there'll actually be kind of a targeted set of these built specifically around demonstrating TLS termination. So for instance, the target and the source and the target might generate a very large number of very short duration security sessions, a situation where hardware acceleration is really necessary to do TLS termination efficiently. Right. So versus other features which would require the source and the target to be configured differently in order to stress that particular hardware acceleration feature. So even within the idea of Nginx, I'm expecting there'll be multiple of these sets of three, just for specific hardware features that we may wish to demonstrate via OPI.
I wanted to add something, if I may. And I know we only have 5 minutes. To me, it's important to understand that although we are a Linux Foundation and an open source community, we're not here to tell our clients what they need to change, but rather listen to our deployment partners and help them adopt. So by listening to what they're already using, by listening to the environments they need supported, we're giving them a service, and at least that's why I signed up for it.
All righty. So the biggest question that F5 has right now is what Kubernetes do we want to be testing this on? That would be a very helpful thing. It's just something that the OPI group would have, because we're going to have to deploy that Kubernetes internally in order to do this testing, and anybody who wants to verify this will want to do the same. So it would be helpful if we could get a recommendation there. Internally, by the way, we don't use Kubernetes for this, we use Docker Swarm. So we could also do that if that's a preference. The important thing is really just to take the networking between the traffic, source, application, and pod out of consideration for an area of failure, so that you have some sort of substrate there. So that's kind of the question that we would love to hear an answer on. Obviously, we could just pick one out of a hat, but we would prefer to pick one that will not be difficult for this group to replicate when they receive this contribution.
Tim, so far we didn't use Kubernetes for exactly the same reason, like you not use internally. We only use in Docker containers and Docker Compose to orchestrate all of that. So
Okay.
I would like to see that continue, because this is also supported on our GitHub Actions. So we can actually automate CI/CD pipelines to test all of this. This is what we're doing with all our repositories. And IPsec application that we can deploy already today, and this would be a good addition. So I prefer to stay away from Kubernetes and deploy in containers and Docker Compose.
Okay. I'm fine with that.
So, but eventually we'll have to probably launch a POC effort to do it with Kubernetes for us.
Once we have an environment that can support Kubernetes, probably when we build a lab, we can definitely discuss it, Tim, for sure.
I would actually want to propose that we ask the deployment partners about this and get an answer, because I want to see a clear path to deployment.
Yeah, I actually think we should follow up with it in the POC work group with this proposal and talk about some of those topics.
All right.
There is no POC group meeting, so you can follow.
Well, we'll have to request one.
Okay.
Who is the lead of the POC group?
That would be me.
That would be Stephen. So maybe if you could put together a meeting invite and send it out, Stephen, then we'll dig into this proposal from that viewpoint.
Yep, I can do that. So what kind of timeline are we looking at here? Are we thinking next week?
Yeah, next week would be fine.
Okay.
So if we were talking Kubernetes, when you said which like specifics, are you talking like which version? Or I mean, are you talking upstream? Or are you talking different variants? Like what, I mean, I would think upstream Kubernetes would just be what you want to use or the latest release. So is there something else you had in mind if you were to go the Kubernetes route?
I would just want us to agree on, basically we would be at that point be doing a Kubernetes install, and I'd want to make sure that we all agree on, essentially exactly which version of exactly which variant using what CNI and all that other stuff, just to make sure that we're all on the same page. It can all be like bog standard, like you say, we can just define it as latest. And if everyone agrees on that, that's fine. It's just, I want to make sure that I'm testing it in a manner that's useful prior to uploading it. So that, other people can reproduce the results that we get in our lab.
So I recommend we talk about this more in the POC meeting next week, Billy. Hopefully you can make it.
No, yeah, that would be good.
Okay.
I'll make sure I find that. Stephen will give it to me. But yeah, we want to make sure that we talk CNIs as well, because that would be interesting conversation of that as well. That's a good point. I was really just thinking like, why wouldn't you just use upstream Kubernetes? But CNI is a big play in that. So yeah, it makes sense.
Okay, well, it's 8 o'clock. I think we have to wrap it up. Thanks everybody for coming. Very good meeting today.
Sounds good.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks for presenting, Tim.
Thank you, Tim.
Anytime.